Happy Wednesday, everybody. It's Jim. It's Amadeus, and we're talking soccer, we're talking golf, and all kinds of fun things. If it's Wednesday, and it is, then that must mean there's a good soccer game on today. And I'll lead you right into it, Amadeus. Let us hear what's going on today.
Yeah, so today is the big Europa Conference League final, one of the three big major competitions in Europe now, newly added. So this is only the second ever conference final. But yes, that will be kicking off at 3 o'clock today. Fiorentina versus West Ham. And yesterday, so it's going to be it's going to be played in Prague on a neutral site. So just so everybody knows. But so yesterday when we talked about it, it was pretty much even for either side.
Right.
To lift the trophy was minus 110 both ways. And just the three-way money line for the 90-minute regulation was plus 175 for both. Now some money has started to come in on West Ham in the last 24 hours before this match, as West Ham is about a plus 162 and Fiorentina's plus 187. So not a huge movement, but enough where they made West Ham a slight favorite, as well as even with the just to lift the trophy. Now Fiorentina's about a minus 106 and West Ham is minus 125. So that moved from a minus 110 yesterday.
Amazing, huh?
Yeah, but I'm still, I'm on Fiorentina to lift the trophy here. So, I mean, hey, if you're going to give them to me at minus 106 over the minus 110 yesterday, I will take it. I'm not too sure about about taking them on the money line in regulation because, this could be one that goes to extra time or even penalties. But I just think Fiorentina, they've been playing a lot better in their last few games, and just the way they ended their season in Italy, they didn't really have anything to play for. They weren't able really to make it into a European spot. They kind of knew they had to win this competition to be in Europa League next year, but they still went out there and won their last two games, 3-1 and 2-1. And one of them, they were losing 1-0 with 10 minutes to go. So they could have easily mailed in that match. And it was against Lazio, the number 2 team in the league right now. And they could have easily mailed that one in, but they scored 2 goals in that final 10 minutes to win 2-1. So this is a team that's hungry, and so they're not in European competition as of next year right now. So they know the importance of winning this match as their only ticket in. But not only that, we've talked about how well they were performing in Italy over the last few weeks. Right. This is also a team that went to the semifinal of the Coppa Italia. So this is a team that, they've gone deep in every competition they played in this year. They had a great season. Wasn't great at the beginning, but they finished off the Italian season strong. They ended up in the finals of the Conference League. They made it to the semifinals for Coppa Italia. So this is a team that was right there all year, and they've been sniffing hardware all year. They just haven't gotten their hands on it yet. And this is their last chance, their one final chance. So I'm still liking Fiorentina.
Yeah, and it's gonna be fun. I mean, you had mentioned yesterday that this is one of those games where it should be enjoyable for the fans to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, these two teams, really, Fiorentina is not one of the top teams in Italy. You don't see them in European competition every year. You never really see them in Champions League at all. So they're not that kind of top tier team. They are a top half of the table team. But yeah, when they had their opportunity this year and they really seized it. And even West Ham, West Ham performed very poorly in the Premier League this year. They're usually not that bad,
right?
But they're also this isn't like a team that finishes top 6 on the regular in the Premier League either. West Ham's always a team that maybe they're middle of the pack kind of team, middle of the table team, and they did have that one year where they got into Europa League a few years ago because they had a top 6 finish. They were top 4 for a lot of that season. Just because they were playing very well. So they do have pieces there, and they do have the potential to have a great season, but it's not often. So again, they're another one.
So take it
that,
when you can get it. Yeah.
Exactly, right? You're not going to see them in the final here too often just because they don't make European competition all the time. And obviously, as we know from West Ham's season in the Premier League, if they don't win this, they're not in European competition next year either.
So, and that, at the end of the day, that's worth, tens of millions of dollars, no?
Yep, extra money from just being in just playing the Conference League matches. You get that influx of cash. Then if you're winning matches and going deeper into the tournament, you're getting extra money for those wins. So absolutely, there's a ton of motivation behind the players to play in Europe next season and behind the club itself, because that's extra money for them. And these smaller clubs, that's what they look for, because they think, maybe if we qualify for Europe next year, knowing we're going to get that money, we can sign a player in the summer that maybe we weren't able to sign before. But now that we know we're getting that influx of cash, we can go a little over, spend a little extra, because that's going to get replaced. The debt is going to get replaced.
Right. And the other thing, to your point on that, is, there's the kind of, for lack of a better way of putting it, bragging rights, right? I mean, you've got that championship trophy and you've got the extra money. And so, you might attract, as you were saying, you could go out and spend some money on a player. You might attract some players that normally you wouldn't have attracted.
Yep, absolutely. Right. So, and you can ask, it doesn't matter if a player is 5 years old or 60 years old. I'm sure you ask any player that plays any sport, they love winning a trophy. So
right,
there's always motivation behind.
And this is not a participation trophy. This is a real trophy.
Yeah, no, this is best in the competition. You guys made it all the way deep. And interestingly enough, if Fiorentina wins it today, because this is only the second year that the Conference League has existed, because it's a very new thing that they've implemented to try and get more European competition for those smaller countries like Georgia and things like that, where their teams aren't quite good enough to go deep even in Europa League, especially when you get the drop down from Champions League. But now you have a Conference League, and all of a sudden, the Turkish, the Czech Republic teams, all those smaller countries can go deeper because you're not facing tougher you're not facing the best of the best, but you're also giving yourself a chance because you're improving by playing against some of the better teams in Europe. Even if they can't keep up with the Manchester Cities, these are still the best teams of their countries. So just the interesting fact with this, if Fiorentina wins today, the Conference League will have been won by 100% Italian teams, because Roma won the first ever one last year.
Just out of curiosity, and I don't hate to put you on the spot, but has that ever been done before? Where an Italian team has scored both, trophies?
I don't know if it's been done, like you're talking like a Champions League, Europa League type thing. Yeah, so I don't know if it's ever been done in the sense where I don't know if it's been done by an Italian league. It's probably been done by a Spanish team, just because Sevilla owns Europa League, and they won it again this year, and they weren't even that good this year. But there's Sevilla's record when they had gotten to the finals was almost like Real Madrid's record when they get to the finals of Champions League. So I could definitely see, I don't know exactly, but I could definitely see probably a Spanish team having one of those years where a Spanish team won a Champions League and the Europa League. I definitely could see that.
Probably I don't think Premier League team too, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's been done by an Italian team though, because Italian teams haven't really performed well in Europa League. You get the odd ones, like my AC Milan used to be very dominant in the Champions League, but it's one of those things. And obviously you have Inter Milan in the finals this year. So it's one of those things where Italian teams tend to excel in Champions League and do nothing in Europa League. But I think for Roma last year, it was one of those things where they went to the finals and lost to Sevilla a few years ago in Europa League. right? So it's one of those where again they're facing lesser competition in the Conference League. So all of a sudden Roma couldn't win the Europa League for so many years. They were, getting to the finals, the semifinals. They were right there but not winning it. Now you introduce the Conference League, they dropped down to that and they ended up winning it in its first season because they were playing again against lesser teams, right? And they still played good teams like Marseille and Feyenoord, but these are not like, they're not the Manchester Cities and the PSGs of the world.
So there you go.
It helps. It helps when you have that lesser road, but yeah, it'll be 100% the Conference League. If Fiorentina wins today, the Conference League will have only been won by Italian leagues or by Italian teams in its history. In its
Well, that's cool.
2-year history.
That's all right. It's got to be a history somewhere.
Yeah.
The thing that we talked about it's being in Prague, right? And Prague is a gorgeous city. I mean, absolutely, it's a gorgeous city. If you ever have a chance to go, folks, by all means, go. It's amazing. And so I imagine it's going to be certainly for the Italians, right? It shouldn't be that hard to get there.
Yeah, I would expect to see quite a bit of Italian fans, maybe a little bit more than the West Ham fans, but I think it'll be a pretty decent split.
Mm-hmm. So it's funny. It's Prague is it has one of those really, really cool. It's got a lot of really cool stuff, but it's got this this very special clock. And what happens is the clock, when it rings, right, it comes. There's this very intricate thing that comes out, and it spins around, and it's like a little village that spins around, and then you've got this guy dinging on the clock, and it really is fantastic. Now, the time I was there, it was 1:00, so it came out, it went ding, and then back away. So I got to see that much of it, but yeah, it's very cool. And it is what it is, right? So all right, there's that. Now we know that Newcastle and Sean has been advocating for the PIL to get involved in bidding for Manchester United. It looks like right now that the PGA, which we talked about yesterday, and the Live Tour are together again.
Yeah, it's looks like there's going to be a merger, and you just got to think about you just got to think about all the players that turned down the offers.
Yep,
and are now going to get nothing from the PGA.
Zip.
And yeah. Actually, I just right before the show, I read I saw an article by the Toronto Star, and the headline was "The PGA used Rory McIlroy as their sacrificial lamb." So I didn't get to read the entire article.
They're not wrong at all.
It pretty much used poor old Rory as the face of you stay with us, you stay with the PGA, and now poor old Rory is going to get nothing out of it when he's got to come face to face with the live golfers once again.
I did see his press conference today, and he was less than. He was. I give him look. How would you like to be Rory McIlroy? And everybody on the planet wants to talk to you about this. And you're playing in a tournament right there, not too far from where you are.
That you're the defending champion in.
And you're the defending champion. It's like I really needed this. So Rory says, well, what happened? By the way, what happened was that I got a text, mind you, on Monday night saying, Rory, can I call you in the morning from PGA, some of the PGA masterminds. And he had no idea what it was about and said, sure, call me.
The PGA commissioner, if you want to call him that.
Well, actually, it wasn't even that. It was a deputy commissioner. It wasn't even the main guy.
We sent the assistant in
Right,
to do this
right.
job. Like, come on.
Like they drew straws, right? It's
It's
like
like breaking up through a text.
Right. Yeah. That's a very good thing to do. So anyway, that actually is closer to probably everything in here. So Rory, who's taken all the slings and arrows, right? Gets this text. Can I call you in the morning? Calls him and says, Rory, here's what we're going to explain to you. And Rory goes, my first initial thought was not that this was a good idea. But he said, I understand in the best interest of the game and all that. And so from that standpoint, he towed the company line. But then when the reporter started asking questions like, hey, Rory, what did you, and Rory said, look, about the, there was reported between $300 and $400 million that he was off. He said, let me just get this part clear. He goes, I personally was never offered money, a penny. He goes, the Live Golf representatives approached my representatives. He goes, I told when my rep, when his agent called him and said, hey, Rory, Liv wants to talk to you about something, this deal. He said, I'm not interested. Okay. However, being an agent, his agent was at least willing to listen and hit him with, they hit him with a number, which I assume, and I'm just going to say assume because I don't know this to be true, that because agents love to do this. He probably leaked it out to the press, might even have thrown a few, extra dollars there.
Yeah, but just doing what agents do.
What agents do. And then called Rory and said, I got a number. And Rory said, what part of I don't want this do you not get? And so no, Rory technically, personally, never knew the number, didn't want to know the number, and was a no, a hard no. Okay. So as the press conference went on, Rory's diplomacy was a little bit less diplomatic as he, winded his way through this disaster.
Well, that's what the reporters do, right? You tell them, you're like, look, we're not going to talk about this, right, and here's your answer to this, and then they just like to beat in the dead horse,
right,
for the rest of the interview, and it's like,
well, his publicist probably drafted something, right, and said, here, Rory, this is, what do you think? And Rory go, okay, fine, maybe he made a couple of tweaks to it one way or the other, and that was his official. That's my on the record comment. Now, when in a case like Rory, if I was Rory, I would kind of be happy that the reporters were going to ask me questions, because then I can simply answer it and say, well, I gave him a statement, but, and he said this, he says, I feel betrayed. Betrayed is not a good word.
By the PGA, right?
Right.
Yeah.
He says, I feel betrayed. He goes, suddenly we went from, these guys being, the worst people on the planet to now we're in business with them. He goes, I don't understand that. And he goes, my hope is, over the next few weeks, we'll actually get an idea of what it is that that we've signed up for. I will later today after the show, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow about it. I've got an interview with Paul Azinger from NBC Sports, who obviously was involved from a standpoint of being a former PGA Tour player and still playing some events occasionally. I'll find out his thoughts on what happened. But my guess is Zinger's not going to be pleased either. And to be honest and be fair, the people who really got hurt here where the guys who are like the excuse me, the guys who play on a weekly basis, who make, work hard to get just enough money to make it. Now, they did fine on the Live Tour because Live was a team event, and so basically, you didn't have to have superstars on all the team. You could fill that out. So there were some guys there that probably made more money than they would have on the PGA Tour. So there's things here that the Live Tour had, which will probably be incorporated into the new PGA. But Live, as we know it, will go out of business at the end of next season. So there will be a 2023 Live. Now, here's the part that Rory was adamant about, and that was the golfers who left the PGA Tour getting some sort of easy pass to get back into the tour. And he was not for that at all. It was like, no, that was a hard no. There's got to be some ramifications to this. He said, I don't know what they are. He said, I'll think about it from my standpoint. He goes, but I'm quite certain that, they're not going to just get an easy way back. Now, because the majors did not exclude Live players, and of course the Canadian Open is a major from a standpoint of, it didn't exclude them either.
Is it really a major?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to help you out here, buddy. Let me give you a chance.
It's not. Nobody up here even watches it.
Oh, okay. Well, fine then. I'll be honest. No.
Unless you're actually going to it, which I have been to it, like people have no interest in it unless you're actually on the course.
Well, they don't play it at the same. They played at the same course area.
Now they do.
Huh.
When I went to it, it was at Hamilton Golf Course.
Okay.
Hamilton Golf and Country Club. It's not at Glen Abbey anymore because Glen Abbey's been shut down for development pretty much. They're trying to
make it into a golf course again, or development?
No, for housing.
Oh. Yeah.
So yeah, and there's been a giant protest actually around the golf course over the last few years because the people of the city want to keep the golf course.
Yeah.
And the city wants to get rid of it for housing. So that's why we don't play at Glen Abbey anymore. But yeah, I think there's also a course out in BC and there's one in Quebec too that they have it at. Mm-hmm. But this course this year is the same one as it was last year, I think. It's Oakdale in Toronto.
Well, yeah, I know it's Toronto, so
yeah.
But
it's actually further for me than when it used to be in Hamilton.
It's funny. We you and I before the show went on mentioned that the poor guys at the Canadian Open for some reason get whacked from the Live thing every the last 2 years. So it's like, whoever wins it, and you mentioned Rory McIlroy, of course, is the defending champion. This could not be. If you want to give somebody, he's your poster boy, right? He's the guy that gets whacked and betrayed and feels betrayed. You not only text him, to set up a phone call, which, by the way, by the time he said this himself, by the time the phone call was over, he was reading the information on Twitter. So it wasn't like they were necessarily holding this till Rory, had a chance to even, compose himself. It was simply, boom, let me tell you before it breaks. And here in the United States, okay, it was broken on CSNBC, which is the business channel. Okay. So NBC, CBS, ESPN, okay, all Turner, which is now Discovery Sports, all have investments in the PGA Tour. Okay, they didn't get a heads up on this, so it was broken on CNBC, the business channel, which you can imagine the golf channel. NBC, ABC, CBS, ESPN are scrambling like crazy, to find people, to talk about this because they're not getting the commissioner. They're not getting the guy who runs the PIF, because he's down the hall at CNBC. So the guys, the guys controlled the narrative, almost in a textbook way. They literally didn't have to explain themselves to anybody at all. So, read into it what you will. And oh, by the way, when they were on CNBC, that was from, the RBC. So,
oh, wow.
So it's like, okay, we know that he's going to have to announce something, right? So then they have the talk, with them, and it didn't go well. So, it's when Jay Monahan, who is the PGA Tour commissioner, I think at the end of the day, because you try to go through this and say, oh, why did they do it, right? What prompted this? Well, one, we always know it's going to be money. Money will prompt anything, and in this case, it did. I've heard estimates, and exactly what I'm saying is an estimate. I'm not saying it's specific. The little Forbes thing on my logo will tell you that I have not yet vetted it. So, but in the neighborhood of between anywhere from 10 to 14 billion dollars is what is invested. What the PIF has explained to the PGA Tour that they will be investing. Now, the PGA Tour, its actual self generates approximately $6 billion to $7 billion a year because it's a nonprofit. It's a nonprofit organization.
How is it a nonprofit organization?
All right, let me explain this to you. All right, it's a nonprofit organization because what, on one hand, the PGA does is the PGA Tour uses its sponsors to pay for the purse. Okay, so whatever sponsors this week's sponsor, okay, pays for the prize money, puts up all the prize money. It's 100%. 100% of the prize money is put up by the sponsor, and the TV aspect, obviously, the sponsor's there as well. Okay. All of the money from the ticket sales and promotion and sale of a percentage of sale of all of the merch and food, all of that goes to local charities in each city. Okay, so technically, again, they don't quote unquote, PGA doesn't make money because they're dealing with independent contractors. So from the person who wins the tournament to the person who draws the last check, that's money in, money out. Okay, there is and nonprofits are allowed this. There is handling type fees and fees that you pay to people who obviously work for the nonprofit. So in the new world, what will happen is the PGA they're going to create a new entity where the PGA will remain the nonprofit side, but the PIF will become the profit side. So there'll be all kinds of interesting things. I would imagine that we're going to see a lot more tournaments overseas now because all of the PGA's involved in this. So you get the PGA Canada, you get the PGA down in South America, you got the PGA Europe, you got the PGA Asia. So you've got all of them involved now as a single entity. So before they were,
doing their own thing pretty much.
Yeah, they were PGA, yes, but they were on their own as far as that part of it was, and that's going to go away. So it's that's how it works. It will be a brand new company. That's why it's going to take a little while for them, so it's not like they're going to do it in 2023 because they couldn't do it that fast. So, plus it also has to pass the in the United States because it is it's not technically a merger, but it is a merger. They have to pass some governmental, hurdles that they'll go through. My guess is,
laws.
yeah, some business issues. The State Department, a few people are going to want to watch that. Here's the thing too, which we've talked about the Saudi investment, like in Newcastle. Excuse me. If this goes through, and there seems to be reason to believe that it will, that opens the door for them to own an NFL team. That opens the door for them to own a Major League Baseball team. Anything they want to own would be theoretically possible because, they now are doing business. And, because of their human rights violations and all that, there is a bit of an uprising. Now, in fairness, the NBA's been doing, years now, I think it's like 5 or 6 years, has been doing business with China. China doesn't have much of a better record on human rights than the Saudis do. So the point being that, there's dirty hands everywhere. Whether you want to, you want to say, well, I'm not going to take that money because it's this, that, and the other. Well, fine. Okay, fine. That's your choice. But what about the money that the NBA is taking? Okay. So
yeah, I think at this point the precedent's already been established.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to have to. That's why I'm thinking that the Justice Department and all the other places where you could get technically into a bit of a bind, you're probably not going to get into it because, again, as you put it, they've been down that street before, and we'll see. I mean, we'll see how it is. I do think that the Saudis made a bid to buy F1 last year, and they returned to buy F1 attempt this year. Liberty Media, who owns it, was thinking of selling it, pondering the thought between $8 and $9 billion. The Saudis offered 16.
Wow!
And they turned it down.
Double the asking price.
Double the asking. And so you're sitting there going, wonder if Liberty Media is going to give them a call back now that the Live tournament went that way. So if you're looking at winners and losers here, I guess I would have to say that one of the winners has got to be Phil Mickelson because he took the cash and will eventually find his way back.
He's back on the tour.
Back on the tour. And someone who I've never seen a person in golf, especially, where you either hate him or you like him. And that's Greg Norman, who was the commissioner of Live. Now, he cashed in, but much of what Live, from a team standpoint and a playing standpoint and all that routine, was created by Norman, and it's going to be adopted by the PGA. So you can hate on Greg all you want to. I personally have no particular feeling one way or the other toward it, but it's going to be part of whatever this new PGA is. So, it's a story that's not going to go away, and for Rory's sake, I hope it goes away at least for long enough for him to have a nice trip through the Toronto area and have an enjoyable tournament. But,
yeah, he's only up here because nobody else is up here, and it's an easy tournament win for him.
Yeah,
you never some easy FedEx points right there. That's what that is.
Just grab them, huh?
Well, he's favored to win the tournament at plus 600, and then like the next guy at like plus 1200 is Sam Burns. Like these are the players that are coming up here. And it's not a knock on Sam Burns, right? But like, it's my point is, it's like Rory, and there's not another top 20 golfer up here.
Okay, so it's kind of like, you would get back in the day, right? You'd get Tiger versus the field. Well, this is kind of like Rory versus the field.
Exactly what it is.
So, Rory's
the defending champion, so like, go grab that plus 600.
Well, you also said that it's being played at the same course.
Yeah, I think it is, and he finished 19 under last year. So
19
under through the 4 days, right?
He torched it. Oh my god!
So, yeah, it's a solid like 5 under every day. So
whoa, man,
our courses aren't easy too. Like I will say, as a Canadian, we got a lot of trees, we got a lot of like thick grass. Right. It's not easy up here, that's for sure.
Right. Well, you better tell that to him, because he just ripped it. It probably today, after what he got handed to him for the last 48 hours, he might not he might not be on his game as well as good, or frankly, he might be liberated.
I don't know. My favorite time to take a golfer or a tennis player is when they're pissed off.
That's a good point.
Like there's this guy from Chile, Nicholas Hari, it's Jarry. He's a tennis player. Anyway, he got a ban like a few months ago for performance enhancing drugs. Yeah. Ever since he came back, that guy went on like a tear. He won 6 straight tournaments. He's kind of faded off a bit now, but like he was just so mad after that. And look at Scherzer since he came back from his suspension.
True, yeah.
He had the one bad start, and he's given up like no runs since then.
Yeah. And by the way, we mentioned yesterday about when Jacob deGrom's coming back, and ladies and gentlemen, this just in: Jacob deGrom isn't coming back.
He always finds his way on like one of the best teams in the league and never plays that season.
It's like, oops. By the way, for those of you, tomorrow, Oakdale, as Amadeus said, it'll be on CBS, the Golf Channel, and Paramount Plus. The purse is a $9 million purse, and there you go. So that is Keegan Stanley's gone there, so not a bad.
No, yeah, there's some names, right? But like besides Rory, you're never gonna get Rahm. Tiger Woods would never come up here, right? Like you're never gonna get those guys, the Rahms, the Cam Smiths.
How's it in the mornings? If you had a choice, would you play in the morning there or play at night? I mean, the afternoon.
Personally, I like to play in the morning because it can get really hot in the afternoon, especially with the humidity around here. The humidity is bad because we're right on a lake. Mm-hmm. And yeah, sometimes the afternoon, the sun is just beating down on you.
Well,
and the course is in the city. Like it's not on the outskirts of Toronto. It's literally in the city, surrounded by buildings. So there's not going to be a lot of shade on this course either.
Or wind, for that matter.
Yeah. Like it's really it affects it bad. It's like right in the city, which I never understood because traffic is terrible in Toronto. And as a golfer, just as the golfers from that standpoint, like I don't even know why you would want to travel to the course in the morning.
Well, Rory's gonna tee off at 7:33 in a foursome with Justin Rose, Simpson, and Brim. So that's a neat little foursome at 7:33.
Yeah, you got some top 20 players in that foursome right there.
That's like your superstar foursome right there. That's the one if you're gonna follow. If you're gonna walk the course, you walk the course with those guys.
Literally the one featured group.
Yeah, it makes it simple. Because the PGA likes to do that. Well, all right, folks. Tell you what, we will get back to you tomorrow and get you ready for the Champions League final on Saturday, and also we'll let you in on if there's any golf played tomorrow at all. By that time, we will have Rory's score, I would think. 2:00 tomorrow. So, anyway, guys, thanks so much for joining us. We shall return tomorrow, 2:00. And have a great day. That's right, Jim. Hit the right button and you will have